warming my blood and pepping up my spirits. I am convinced that floods of personal disaster can never drown a determined revolutionary. To a freedom fighter, hope is what a lifebelt is to a swimmer. A guarantee that one will keep afloat and free from danger.
Behind palace walls, tensions are rising, loyalties are shifting, and the future of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle hangs by a thread. Titles once guaranteed by birthright are suddenly at risk, and the family they left behind may be preparing for a decision that could redefine the monarchy forever. This isn't just a family dispute, it's a battle for legacy, identity, and survival. And the clock is running out. Imagine a situation where two well-known members of the royal family suddenly find themselves at the center of a debate about whether they should keep the titles they have held for years.
We're living through a pandemic that continues to ravage communities in every corner of the globe. Climate change wreaking havoc on our planet, with the most vulnerable suffering most of all. The few weaponizing lies and disinformation at the expense of the many. And from the horrific war in Ukraine.
That is the position Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are in now. In recent weeks, discussions around the future of their titles have intensified, and conversations inside and outside the palace have shifted in a way that suggests the matter is becoming more serious. Harry is known formally as the Duke of Sussex, a title given to him on his wedding day. Meghan became the Duchess of Sussex at the same time. Alongside these, Harry also holds other traditional peerage titles, each tied to British history and the regions they refer to. For a long time, the couple's titles were part of the accepted structure of the modern monarchy, even after they stepped back from their senior roles. But growing scrutiny, changes within the royal family, and shifting public attitudes mean the stability of those titles is now less certain than it once was. A major point of concern in these discussions is the couple's children. Their son and daughter were recognized with their own titles following the accession of the current monarch. For many observers, the titles of the children symbolize not only their connection to their grandfather and great-grandmother, but also their place within a system that values lineage and continuity. The idea that these titles could be affected by decisions made about their parents is prompting deeper questions about how the institution views the younger generation and what sort of future the family is preparing for. Among commentators and analysts, there is a growing belief that the monarchy may now be facing a crossroads. Some feel that the royal family has reached a point where it must show that it can adapt quickly, protect its credibility, and respond to expectations from the public. In this context, the titles of Harry and Meghan have become a focal point. The conversation is no longer just about tradition, it is about what the titles represent and whether they are compatible with the couple's current standing. Reports suggest that Harry recently flew to the UK on short notice. This wasn't for a planned ceremony or a charitable engagement, but rather a reaction to what some insiders describe as a shift in the royal atmosphere. Whether or not that is entirely accurate, this idea reflects the growing feeling that significant changes may be underway. For Harry, whose identity has long been shaped by his royal roles, the thought of losing his titles or seeing them reduced poses understandable concerns, both on a personal level and for his family. The broader debate about titles is influenced by several factors. The first is the question of identity within the royal framework. Titles in the British system are not just honorary labels. They carry historical weight, and they signal a person's role within the family and the country. For Harry and Meghan, their titles have followed them into their new lives, shaping how the public sees them and how they present themselves, even as they lead an independent life outside the traditional royal environment. Second, there is the issue of public expectation. For a long time, the public had mixed feelings about the couple's role following their departure from senior duties. Some supported their decision, while others felt that stepping away should have meant stepping away fully, including giving up formal titles. As time has passed and the couple has pursued various media, commercial and personal projects, this debate has only grown more prominent. Many people argue that titles should not be used in ways that appear to support or promote private ventures, and this concern has slowly gained more attention. Third, the internal dynamics of the royal family are evolving, with senior figures facing health challenges and younger members taking on additional responsibilities. The royal structure is undergoing a period of re-evaluation. As the responsibilities shift, so too does the conversation about who represents the monarchy and in what capacity. In this changing environment, the position of Harry and Meghan is naturally subject to review. From the couple's perspective, the idea of losing their titles is not a simple matter. For Harry, the titles link directly to his sense of identity and the responsibilities he was raised with. They also influence how he and his children are viewed internationally. For Meghan, the titles have become part of the narrative she stepped into upon marriage and later stepped away from in practical terms. Losing or altering these titles would not just reshape their public identity, it would change the way future generations understand their family's place in royal history. Another part of this discussion involves the legal and procedural elements associated with removing titles. It is not something that happens often, and when it does, it requires clear steps and official decisions. This means any change would not happen overnight. Yet despite these practical elements, public conversation tends to move faster than official processes, often giving the impression that a formal decision is imminent, even when it may not be. This gap between perception and procedure adds to the tension surrounding the subject. The children are frequently drawn into the conversation as well. Even though they are young and far removed from public duties, their names and titles carry significance. The possibility that decisions affecting the parents might indirectly influence the children has been a source of speculation. Some commentators suggest that the family may eventually choose to give the children more privacy by steering away from titles altogether. Others believe the titles could be preserved for the next generation as a way of honoring their lineage while still redefining the roles of their parents. At the heart of all this is a sense of uncertainty. While nothing has been formally confirmed by the palace regarding title removal, the increased attention and the growing number of discussions around the issue show that the topic is no longer hypothetical. The fact that the matter is being raised at all suggests that the monarchy is reviewing its long-term direction and considering how the actions of each family member contribute to its reputation and stability. Whenever a reigning monarch faces medical concerns, the institution naturally adjusts its internal workings, and that appears to be the case. Now, while official statements tend to remain measured and focused on reassurance, it is widely understood that any health challenge at the top creates a shift in tone, responsibilities, and expectations. This is not unusual for a constitutional monarchy, where continuity and stability are essential, but the effect is still significant. In this environment, the role of the heir becomes more visible and more active. Over recent months, attention has turned to the Prince of Wales as he takes on a growing number of duties traditionally managed by the sovereign. This gradual change is not presented as a dramatic transfer of power, but rather as part of the natural rhythm of royal life, where responsibilities are shared and adapted as circumstances evolve. Nonetheless, the increased involvement of the heir has drawn interest from observers who see it as a sign of a quieter, more deliberate shift taking place behind palace walls. The phrase some commentators use to describe this stage is a quiet succession. It does not imply any formal transfer of the crown, nor does it suggest a sudden change in roles. Instead, it reflects a reality in which the heir begins to shoulder more of the administrative and public responsibilities, while the monarch focuses on recovery and essential duties. Historically, moments like this have occurred when monarchs have faced age, health concerns, or temporary absences. In the current context, the heir's stepped-up presence has become one of the most discussed features of royal life. For the Prince of Wales, this means leading meetings, representing the royal household at events, consulting with officials, and becoming increasingly involved in areas of strategic decision-making. People close to the palace environment note that his leadership style differs from that of his father. While the king is often described as thoughtful, reflective, and guided by long-standing personal interests, the heir is frequently portrayed as more structured, pragmatic, and focused on efficiency. These observations are not judgments, but simply reflections of two individuals shaped by different eras and experiences. As the heir becomes more directly involved in the daily workings of the monarchy, public perception also shifts. He is no longer seen only as the future monarch, waiting for his place in history. Instead, he appears as someone who is already putting his own approach into practice. This may influence everything from how engagements are planned to how the institution communicates with the public. For a monarchy that must balance tradition with modern expectations, Such stylistic differences can have a noticeable effect. Alongside this increased responsibility, the heir faces complicated family dynamics. The relationship between him and his younger brother, Prince Harry, has been widely reported on and discussed for several years. Much of what is said publicly comes from commentary, not from the family themselves, and it is important to acknowledge that observers often rely on interpretation rather than direct statements. Still, the narrative surrounding the relationship describes an ongoing distance, and that distance has created further challenges at a time when cooperation could have been helpful. Reports of Harry seeking private meetings with his father and brother are mentioned frequently in media commentary, but none of these accounts have been confirmed publicly. What can be said with certainty is that the public sees little sign of a reunion or a significant shift in the dynamic. When requests or invitations appear unanswered, commentators often interpret it as a sign of formality or caution within the palace. Whether that is accurate or not, the perception contributes to a sense that communication between the brothers is limited and that the heir is focused primarily on his institutional responsibilities. The heir's approach appears to prioritize the overall stability and long-term reputation of the monarchy. At a time when public support can fluctuate, maintaining a clear and consistent image is seen as essential. This means that any issue related to public perception, media attention, or reputational risk may be treated more cautiously. Some observers believe this cautious, structured leadership style influences the way the family responds to the actions and public statements of its members, including Harry and Meghan. When the heir takes on more responsibility, the tone of decision-making often reflects his personality. Some describe his approach as analytical, measured, and focused on avoiding unnecessary complications. This has led to speculation that he may prefer fewer dramatic gestures and more firm boundaries about who represents the institution and how they do so. It does not necessarily mean he seeks confrontation. Instead, it may mean he aims to avoid situations that create additional challenges when the monarchy already faces a demanding period. This cautious approach appears to shape how the institution deals with requests, meetings, and public discussions involving family members who have stepped back from royal duties. When silence is used as a response, it is often interpreted not as hostility, but as a deliberate choice to avoid adding pressure or escalating tension. Silence, in the royal context, can function as a way of creating distance, maintaining formality, or signaling that decisions will not be made hastily. At the same time, the king's illness has affected how the public views the structure of the monarchy. People tend to look for signs of continuity, stability, and preparedness. Seeing the heir take on more responsibility can be reassuring to supporters of the institution. It suggests that the system remains functional regardless of individual circumstances. This dual leadership approach, with the king performing core duties, while the heir assumes a more prominent organizational role, aims to maintain confidence during an affront-too uncertain period. However, it also brings into focus long-standing questions about the future of the monarchy. How modern should the institution be? How large should the working royal family remain? How should the monarchy adapt to media scrutiny and a rapidly changing public landscape? The heir's increased involvement highlights these questions because he will be the one shaping the answers in the years ahead. For some observers, his leadership appears to signal a move toward a streamlined monarchy, one with fewer working members, clearer boundaries, and a more defined public purpose. Others believe the monarchy may take a more traditional approach once stability returns. Regardless of which interpretation proves correct, what is clear is that this moment of transition has brought many underlying issues into sharper focus. Behind all of this is the fundamental reality that the monarchy is both a family and an institution. When the health of its leader is affected, the institution responds with formal adjustments, while the family responds emotionally, privately, and personally. The public sees only the formal side, but the private side undoubtedly influences how decisions are shaped and how individuals cope. One of the central points of debate concerns how Meghan uses her public platform. Long before she joined the royal family, she worked in television, participated in humanitarian projects, and cultivated an independent identity. After stepping back from senior royal duties, she continued producing content, collaborating on projects, and expanding her own ventures. For some, this represents a natural progression of her career. For others, it raises questions about the boundary between royal identity and private enterprise. This boundary has been a recurring theme of commentary in recent years. While Meghan and Harry no longer serve as working members of the royal family, they still hold titles that connect them to the institution. Their public work, interviews, and media projects therefore generate attention not only because of their personal stories, but also because of the formal association they continue to hold. For critics, this raises concerns about whether their royal titles should be used in contexts that are commercial or promotional in nature. Supporters argue that titles are part of their personal identity and that their independent professional choices should not be constrained by traditional expectations. Against this backdrop, conversations have emerged about a piece of guidance reportedly given to Meghan early in her royal life. According to these discussions, the late Queen was said to have advised her to treat her royal platform carefully, especially when it came to any activities that could be perceived as commercial or self-promotional. Whether this guidance was formally stated or simply part of the general understanding between senior royals is unclear. What is clear is that the perception of how one uses royal identity remains highly sensitive within the institution. This perception came into sharper focus when Meghan began developing new creative and business projects. Her podcast, her speaking engagements, and her production work all carried her name prominently, and in some cases, public commentary suggested that her royal connection played a role in the level of attention these projects received. This does not mean that the work itself lacked merit. It simply reflects a long-standing reality that anything connected to the monarchy attracts heightened public scrutiny. Most recently, Meghan's involvement in a new lifestyle or beauty venture has been the subject of considerable public interest. Promotional material, social media activity, and discussions around the project have been interpreted in various ways. Some view it as a natural extension of her independent career. Others see it as a rebranding effort that draws indirectly on her status as a public figure with royal ties. The very fact that the project generated widespread commentary illustrates how closely the public continues to watch her activities. This attention has also been shaped by polling data and broader public opinion trends. In the world of contemporary media, polls are often conducted to measure public sentiment toward public figures, including members of the royal family. While polls reflect only a portion of society, they contribute to narratives about popularity, trust, and credibility. In the case of Meghan, and by extension Harry, some polls in recent years have shown a notable level of skepticism or disapproval among sections of the British public. In contrast, other polls have shown strong support among international audiences, especially in the United States. The contrasting opinions illustrate how differently Meghan is perceived in different parts of the world. In the UK, where the monarchy is woven into the national identity, public expectations are shaped by tradition and a sense of continuity. For some British respondents, actions that appear to distance oneself from royal duties while maintaining royal titles create tension. In the United States, where individual reinvention and public storytelling are more common, Meghan is often seen through a different lens, one that emphasizes personal autonomy, narrative building, and career development. This divide in perception has created a complicated atmosphere around her public image. It has also influenced how the palace, and particularly the heir to the throne, approaches discussions about the future of titles and royal roles. While the monarchy typically refrains from commenting on polls or public opinion, it cannot ignore the fact that public support is essential for its long-term stability. When negative perceptions become widespread or persistent, the institution may feel compelled to evaluate its approach to how different members represent or appear connected to the crown. In some commentary, this led to speculation that Meghan's growing brand and the way it is promoted could be seen as inconsistent with the monarchy's expectations for those who hold royal titles. The monarchy has historically adopted a cautious stance regarding commercial activity associated with royal status. Even when family members pursue independent careers, they are usually expected to avoid creating the impression that their royal identity is being used to enhance private ventures. For Meghan, navigating this expectation while living outside the UK and working independently is not straightforward. Her professional life naturally involves public promotion, branding, and partnerships, which are standard practices in many industries. However, for some observers, the combination of modern promotional methods and the symbolic weight of a royal title creates a tension that is difficult to resolve. As this tension has grown, it has prompted speculation that the Prince of Wales may feel increasingly motivated to protect the reputation of the institution he is preparing to lead. From his perspective, maintaining the credibility of the monarchy may require clearer boundaries about how titles are used. Whether or not this view leads to formal changes is a matter for the future, but the conversation itself is indicative of how the monarchy is reassessing its outward image in a world where public scrutiny is constant and immediate. Another part of the discussion involves the idea of responsibility. Some commentators argue that individuals who hold royal titles, even if they are not working royals, should maintain a certain distance from promotional work that could be interpreted as leveraging royal identity. Others argue that such expectations unfairly restrict personal freedom and ignore the realities of building a career outside the institution. These conflicting views contribute to a broader debate about what modern royalty should look like and how it should operate. The intensity of public discussion about Meghan's work also highlights how quickly narratives can form in the digital age. A single interview, promotional video, or public appearance can spark widespread conversation, leading to interpretations that vary widely depending on cultural background, political perspective, or personal values. This environment places additional pressure on individuals who are connected to the monarchy, whether through birth or marriage. In this context, Meghan's public activity becomes more than a personal or professional matter. It becomes a symbol of larger questions about the monarchy's identity, relevance, and relationship to modern society. For some observers, her career choices exemplify the challenges the institution faces as it tries to balance tradition with the realities of global media. For others, her actions reflect the opportunities available to individuals who wish to forge their own path while remaining connected to a historic institution. Much of this conversation focuses on the Prince of Wales and the approach he appears to be taking as he gradually assumes more responsibility. While nothing has been formally announced and no significant changes have been confirmed, there is a noticeable shift in the way the royal household is being organized. This has led many observers to consider how the institution might be restructured in the years ahead and what that could mean for various members of the family, including those who have stepped back from official duties. In recent discussions, a recurring theme has emerged around the idea of streamlining. Modern monarchies around the world often adapt their structures in response to changing social expectations, public engagement, and the practical needs of the times. In the United Kingdom, these conversations have gained momentum as the heir plays a more active role. The suggestion is not that the institution will undergo a dramatic overhaul, but rather that it may refine or narrow its focus. This could involve re-examining which members carry out official duties, how roles are defined, and how public representation is managed. For the Prince of Wales, the guiding principle appears to be clarity. Observers describe his approach as deliberate, efficient, and centered on ensuring that the monarchy remains stable and respected. These qualities are important in a climate where public scrutiny is intense and the institution must demonstrate its value. The heir has grown up in an environment where the royal family has frequently been the subject of public debate, and this has likely shaped how he sees the future of the monarchy. An emphasis on structure and transparency fits with an understanding that the institution must remain adaptable. Part of this potential refinement includes consideration of how titles are used and by whom. Royal titles carry historical significance, but they also carry a public dimension. They can influence how individuals are perceived by the media, how they engage with organizations, and how their actions reflect on the institution as a whole. If the monarchy decides to pursue a more streamlined model, one question that naturally arises is how to handle titles in a way that aligns with that vision. It has been suggested that the Prince of Wales may prefer a system where titles are closely connected to official roles. This idea is not new. Discussions about linking titles to active duty have occurred periodically over the years. The concept is simple. Those who represent the monarchy publicly hold formal titles, while those who step away from official responsibilities may have their titles adjusted or may choose not to use them. Such a model aims to reduce confusion about who speaks for the institution and who does not. Whether this idea will be adopted remains uncertain, but the fact that it is being discussed illustrates the evolving thinking within royal circles. Another part of this conversation involves legal and procedural considerations. Titles are not removed lightly, and any significant change would require careful deliberation. The monarchy operates within a constitutional framework, and decisions of this nature would need to align with established processes. This means that any potential restructuring, if it were to occur, would be approached thoughtfully and with attention to precedent. However, the institution also understands the importance of adapting to public expectations, which can create pressure for more immediate clarity. In this context, it is natural that discussions about Harry and Meghan's titles come into the spotlight. Their departure from senior royal duties has already created a unique situation. They hold titles but do not undertake official engagements on behalf of the monarchy. Their public roles are independent of the royal household, yet their names remain associated with it. This duality has led to differing interpretations of what their titles should signify. For a monarchy contemplating a way-free, streamlined structure, this raises questions about consistency and coherence. Some commentators believe that the Prince of Wales may feel a responsibility to address this issue. His focus appears to be on strengthening the public-facing aspects of the monarchy, ensuring that the institution remains credible and focused. In such a scenario, unresolved or ambiguous roles could be viewed as a challenge to the clarity he is trying to cultivate. This does not automatically imply that changes will be made, but it does help explain why discussions about titles continue to surface. If restructuring were to be considered, one potential approach would be to establish clear guidelines for title usage based on current roles and responsibilities. Under such a framework, members who are active in public duties would retain their titles in full, while those who pursue independent careers outside the official structure might have different expectations. This approach would not necessarily remove titles, but could redefine how they are used. Such a shift could help the monarchy maintain consistency while allowing individual family members the freedom to shape their own paths. Any changes of this nature would need to consider long-term consequences. Titles are not only symbols but also part of the historical record. Decisions made now would affect future generations, shaping how lineage and identity are understood. For Harry and Meghan, the implications could extend to their children, who currently hold titles connected to their grandfather's reign. The monarchy would need to weigh the impact on tradition, family identity, and public perception before making any final decision. Additionally, the Prince of Wales must balance institutional priorities with personal relationships. The monarchy is both a family and a public body, and decisions made for the sake of the institution can have personal effects. This dual nature adds complexity to any conversation about restructuring. While the heir appears focused on the long-term stability of the monarchy, he must also navigate his role as a son, brother, and father. Managing these dual responsibilities requires a careful and thoughtful approach. For the monarchy, the evolution taking place around roles, expectations, and public representation inevitably brings Prince Harry and Meghan Markle back into the center of discussion. Their decisions over the past few years, their distance from the royal household, and their new life abroad have shaped not just their own identity, but the way the public sees them. Now, with the monarchy reviewing its direction and preparing for the future, the questions surrounding their titles, their positions, and their relationships carry even greater weight. For Harry, the past few years have been a period of transition that few in his position have experienced. After growing up in the public eye and serving as a senior working royal for many years, he stepped away from the role with a sense of purpose and conviction. At the time, he and Meghan expressed their desire to build independent careers while also maintaining a respectful connection to the monarchy. This balancing act has not always been simple. As time has passed, Harry has had to navigate life in a new country, engage in projects outside the traditional royal structure, and adjust to a role that is neither fully royal nor fully detached from his origins. The personal impact of this transition has been a subject of frequent commentary. Some sources describe Harry as someone who has found new meaning and freedom in his work abroad. Others portray him as a figure who, despite his independence, continues to feel the weight of his separation from the institution he was raised to serve. Both interpretations contain elements of truth. For anyone raised in a highly structured environment, moving into a freer but less defined world can bring both opportunity and uncertainty. Harry appears to be finding his place somewhere between the two. One of the challenges for him has been maintaining a sense of identity outside the framework that once shaped his daily life. For much of his adult life, Harry's role was clear, his responsibilities defined, and his place within the family established. Leaving that system behind meant creating a new identity, shaped by personal choices rather than institutional expectations. For many people, this type of transition would be difficult enough in private. For Harry, it has unfolded in the public eye, with commentary from every direction. Meghan has also faced a complex journey. Her life before joining the royal family was rooted in acting, humanitarian work, and advocacy. After stepping back from royal duties, she has continued along that path, expanding her creative ventures and developing new professional interests. However, she has had to do so while navigating public debate about her role and her connection to the monarchy. Every new project attracts attention, not only because of its content, but because of her past. This dynamic creates both opportunity and pressure, as she builds a career in a landscape shaped by intense public scrutiny. As the couple continues to develop their work, questions about their future relationship with the monarchy remain central to discussions about the institution's next steps. For a streamlined model to be successful, the roles and expectations of each family member need to be clear. Harry and Meghan sit in a unique position, neither fully outside the family nor fully inside its working structure. The ambiguity of their current status is one reason why their titles attract so much attention. Their decisions, their public statements, and their projects all contribute to the evolving discussion about what it means to be a modern royal. The possibility that titles could be removed, adjusted, or voluntarily surrendered carries significant implications. Titles hold historical meaning and connect individuals to the lineage of the monarchy. Losing them does not erase a person's history, but it changes the way that history is framed. For Harry, whose identity as a prince has been part of his life since birth, such a change would be profound. For Meghan, it would reshape the lens through which her public work is viewed. For their children, it could influence how they experience their family heritage in the years ahead. One of the central tensions in this situation is the question of legacy. Harry and Meghan have spoken openly about wanting to create a life that aligns with their values, offering their children a sense of stability and personal freedom. At the same time, their royal heritage ties them to centuries of tradition. Balancing personal aspirations with historical legacy can be difficult. The decisions being considered now may define how their branch of the family is remembered in the future. The emotional dimension of this situation cannot be overlooked. The monarchy is a public institution, but it is also a family. Even in periods of distance or disagreement, personal relationships carry weight. For Harry, the connection to his father and brother remains significant, even if the relationship is strained. Any changes involving titles, roles, or public expectations therefore carry personal implications as well as institutional ones. Decisions made at the royal household level will inevitably be experienced on a human level by the individuals involved. At the same time, the monarchy must consider the long-term needs of the institution. Public opinion, media representation, and political context all influence how the monarchy is perceived. The Prince of Wales, preparing for his future role, appears focused on stability, clarity, and a modern sense of purpose. In this climate, unresolved questions about roles and titles can feel like loose ends that need to be addressed. While the process may be gradual, the direction seems to point toward a more defined set of expectations for everyone connected to the royal family. For Harry, this may mean facing choices about how he wishes to engage with the monarchy in the years ahead. Does he want to restore a closer relationship with the institution, even if it requires adjusting his public work? Does he prefer to maintain a more independent path, even if that involves stepping further away from formal titles? These are not simple questions, and the answers may evolve as the family's circumstances change. For Meghan, the path forward may involve continuing to build her independent identity while acknowledging the ongoing public interest in her royal connection. Her career is likely to grow and adapt as she develops new projects, and her ability to shape her own narrative will remain an important part of her work. How the monarchy responds to her evolving role will depend on the broader vision being shaped at the top. For the children, the future is still open. They are young, and the decisions made now will shape the environment. they grow up in. Whether they hold titles or not, their heritage will remain part of their identity. How they choose to engage with that heritage when they are older will be their own decision.